I have some opinions to share as well as a whole entire Google Doc for a script, so you know that it's video essay time. It is no secret that I have made many a video talking about overconsumption, whether it be about unnecessary gadgets that you will never use to extreme hauls, but there is one area that I have yet to cover. Actually, there's multiple eras, but this is one that I haven't yet, and that is the overconsumption of media. Due to our ability to access practically anything on the internet at any given time, incredibly high screen times, and the inability to perform basic tasks without having to have a video playing on the background or just not being able to do it in complete silence, we are all suffering from what psychologists call media saturation overload, when casual scrolling turns into compulsion. I don't know if this is just something that I personally have realized while scrolling, but I usually feel so overstimulated when I am on the internet, going through social media, or catch myself doom scrolling. Yet at the same time, I can't stop. Like, I'm very aware of the fact that this is not good for me and that like I'm just kind of scrolling out of habit rather than actually looking at the information that I'm intaking. But I can't stop, which is not a good thing, because originally the term doom scrolling came about during the pandemic when people were taking in so much doom related content because, you know, rising pandemic rates, people were dying, the internet was practically the only place that people were actually able to talk to each other because everything outside of that was shut down. But this term has kind of been co-opted to mean just scrolling for extreme amounts of time with no kind of intention to ever stop. And this excessive amount of media that we are all consuming is kind of leading to what scientists like to call headline anxiety or headline stress disorder, because I don't think we as humans were ever supposed to have this much information at our fingertips at all times. It's quite literally what's leading to so many people to just be constantly having anxiety, as I said, for headlines, to just be taking in so much information that our human brains just can't seem to fathom all of it. But not only is this bad, obviously, for mental health reasons, but it's also tearing us away from the true purpose for media, which is to express creativity, share a new story, and understand other people's experiences through different forms of media. And this is a big disclaimer. I do believe that having access to a lot of information is obviously a very good thing in many cases, because that is how we stay aware on what's happening around the world, how we are able to prevent ourselves from being taken advantage of because we are ignorant. And when you don't know what's happening, it's very hard to push for change because you don't even know that change is needed in the first place. So there are obvious positives to having a lot of information, but the sheer amount of it right now is quite honestly just overwhelming. And a lot of us are suffering mentally from it, as well as the media itself is suffering. And specifically, I'm not talking about, you know, news organizations, even though they have their own problems and that kind of information, more of like movies, TV shows, books, those other forms of media that are usually for entertainment as well as education, but mostly to share stories rather than for the sake of just education. I hope I'm making that distinction clear, because we have co-opted genuinely interacting with media for consuming it, which highly affects our critical thinking skills, as well as of our analysis for what we're actually watching, reading, etc. Because consumption and engagement are two very different words, and although people will probably say like it's not that deep, the words that we use for it, I think it is, because ultimately it displays how we actually are interacting with the media itself. Because the definition of consumption is the act of using, eating, or drinking something. And I want to draw specific attention to the word using. When we view media as something to be consumed, we are using it for a variety of reasons, such as we are using it to seem cool, to seem like we're a reader, to seem more academic, or we are using it to block out the thoughts going through our heads because it is hard to sit with yourself in genuine silence and actually let yourself think. So this is why I would like to start using the word engage with media more than consume, because this describes the relationship that we should be having with media. The definition of engage is to participate or become involved in, which encourages to work with media, not force it to bend to our will or become a trophy to display, representing our knowledge, academic prowess, or coolness. The best example that I can think of to display what consumption of media is when celebrities kind of walk around with books pretending like they're reading them, and maybe some of them are, I'm not saying all of them are pretending to read them, but they walk around and use it more as an accessory rather than something that they're actually, you know, engaging or interacting with. They do this to make themselves look well read and more maybe smarter or more academic. Another example I can kind of think of this is the whole performative male thing that's going on right now. I have mixed opinions about this kind of internet buzz that's around this, because while I do think there are some people who do performatively carry around books and pretend to be a lot more smart about things like female anatomy or knowing more about women in general, and they use it to, you know, manipulate women and make them think that like, you know, I'm just one of those good guys that like treats women as equals. And it's like, yes, we want men who treat women as equals, like obviously we want people to treat everyone as equals, but not in a performative way. But when we kind of enforce this idea that everyone who carries around a book is performatively doing so, we kind of actually steer people away from getting into reading because we make it seem as if they have to check certain check boxes in order to be a reader. So that's why this whole like performative male thing is just kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me, because some of these men that are walking around with a tote bag and a matcha like tote bags, they like matchas, and they also like reading. So like, why are we critiquing them? At least they're picking up a book and reading it. And I myself am not immune to this whole, like, you know, posing to be someone to come across as more like academic or well-read, because one of my favorite pictures that I think has ever been taken of me is me like pretending to read this poetry book that I had just bought at the park. And my friend took this on her digital camera, and it's such a good picture, but I'm not reading the book. I'm gonna be honest. I was not reading it. It was for the picture. Do I actually read in real life and genuinely engage with books and literature and movies? Yes. In this case, though, I was not. And so I'm not coming at this discussion with a viewpoint of like, I am better than all of you and I'm so much better, because I'm not. I fall into these same kind of things. I'm just more of doing this to kind of have a discussion about it, because I myself need to realize what I'm saying. Because all this has kind of made media to seem more of an accessory or a way of showing off rather than a form of expression that challenges the way in which we see the world and the people in it. And when we take in media to the extent that I know most of us do, with extremely high screen times, the actual value of media and the impact that it makes on us is diminished, because we never allow it to linger in our minds as we have already moved on to consume the next thing. And this kind of overconsumption of media is pushed upon us in many different ways, but the big one has to be social media, which I know I talk a lot about this on my channel, social media, but this one, it's like overconsumption and social media are best friends. They really are, especially TikTok and overconsumption. You can't separate the two. Short form content like TikToks, Reels, YouTube Shorts suck us in with catchy intros and buzzwords. And the urge to swipe that finger just one more time keeps us in this perpetual loop of consuming media, news stories, other people's opinions, and oftentimes even fake information. This idea of brain rotting has become not only normalized, but even celebrated in some cases. This is why I have recently kind of been opting to watch more long form content, specifically on YouTube, not only because I think the creators put a lot more effort into their videos because they're longer, the editing process takes a lot longer, trust me, and you have to provide a lot of information to keep engagement throughout the entire video. I think that I learn a lot more from these videos, and the people making them have a lot of passion. And that's not to say that people who make short form content are not passionate about what they're doing. I think that it varies, and to generalize either group of people for something never really works. There's a lot more nuance than that. But also that when I am watching YouTube, I am genuinely more engaged with the video because I am watching it for a longer amount of time, and therefore I'm thinking about it for longer and actually processing what it is that I'm intaking. I'm actually engaging with it because you're actually having a conversation about the topic or with the topic, and not only learning more about the topic itself, but also how you yourself react to it, and therefore your own thoughts and opinions, and how you approach media. The other way that overconsumption is kind of pushed on this, and I hate to say this because I do actually like these things, are tracking apps such as Letterboxd, Goodreads, Fable, etc. Because these platforms encourage setting goals and recording what you read and watch and how much you read and watch. We are no longer focused on actually engaging with the story, but rather of finishing it and then checking off the box. And this also connects back to the performative aspect of media engagement or consumption, because we are not really consuming or engaging with the media, because we are consuming the media with the idea of tracking it and logging it so that other people can see it and prove that, like, I read 50 books this year, or to prove that we have good movie taste, or that, you know, our style is so good because we read these books and we watch these movies. It's becoming more of a performance than an actual experience. Consuming books is done to display that you are a reader, an academic, that you maybe are smarter than a lot of other people, while consuming films is done to show that you are a film connoisseur, a cinephile, a film bro. I don't know why I said all that in a French accent. Of course, not all the time. There are some people who genuinely love it. I am by no means saying that this is everyone who falls into this overconsumption of media thing. There are so many people who are very aware of what they're consuming and do not watch movies simply, you know, to call themselves a film bro, but because they actually like the movie. I'm by no means saying that this is everyone, or that everyone who maybe has watched a movie for that reason does that for every movie or every book. I'm not saying that these tracking apps are the root cause of overconsumption, but they definitely add to it and kind of perpetuate it. Guys, I get it. I understand that it is so fun to know, like, review a movie after you've done watching it, Look at those funny comments that people leave on letterbox reviews, because sometimes they are the funniest things. I love to read those. I love to leave quippy little one-liners. I love to write reviews of books that I've read. And I do sometimes like to see like, oh my God, I've read like 20 books this year. That's really good. Good job, me. These goals that we have are not necessarily bad. They are just enforcing us to kind of consume media in a way that they truly were not meant to be consumed. One of my favorite YouTubers, Dylan Joseph, actually talked about this a little bit in one of his recent videos about how to better engage with books and, annotate them and really just remember what you're reading, because so many people will read a book and then completely forget what happened in it. And he made a really good point about how setting like really lofty reading goals kind of forces us to read books more for the idea of checking it off rather than actually engaging with the story. And it really enforces this idea of quantity over quality. People will read over like 100 books a year but not be able to recall any plot details or some of their favorite books. Because when we speed read or try to get through things as quickly as we possibly can, we oftentimes miss the messages as well as fail to critically analyze what it is that we are reading or watching, etc. This enforcement of quantity over quality is nothing new when it comes to media. This is not something that like has recently just become this big thing. I think it's been around for a long time. It's just becoming increasingly more prevalent because of social media and how much time people do spend online. Because, look at streaming services lately. They have definitely been opting for quantity over quality, because some of the movies that have been coming out lately on like Prime Video or Netflix are of interesting quality. But, they keep pushing these out because that's what they think we as the viewers want. They're pushing out hordes of not very well-made movies or TV shows rather than well-crafted and thought-out stories. When all that is available to us is just an insane amount of slop, we feel no need to actually ask for better stories or expect better media made with genuine passion and effort, because it feels almost impossible. And this is not to say that something must be perfect in order for it to be published or to be made into a movie. I think that having imperfections is part of being a human, and therefore all of the media that we create will always have what people will label as imperfections. These faults and discrepancies in works of art is what makes them a human creation. It's what makes them real. And constantly striving for perfection is honestly exhausting. But that does not mean that putting genuine work and effort into what you are making should not be expected when you are an artist or making music, media, films, books of any kind. Because it is when we mindlessly consume media without critically examining what the messages or themes are that we become complicit, even content with media that is just plain out bad and that has nothing to offer us. This sounds a lot like AI and how we're just kind of opting to be like, sure, AI can read this book for me and tell me a summary. No, you're not actually engaging with the story. So much of a story is not just the summary that can be taken out of it, but rather how it was written, the prose, how the lines connect, the metaphors, everything like that. There's so much more to a book than just the summary. Being more aware and intentional with the media that we consume is really important in a world where there is just simply so much media to sift through. And I don't really have any solution to this. I just know that I personally am just trying to limit how much time I spend on my phone. I say that like literally every single video I talk about like any kind of media, but I genuinely am trying to just, stay off social media as much, not be doom scrolling, not catch myself scrolling through my For You page, because I realize that I'm a lot more in tune with the world around me, as well as the people in my life when I am not stuck on my phone. And I've noticed that a lot of things that I end up watching, I'm not actually genuinely interested, especially the short form content. I'm just kind of there because they pulled me in with a catchy word, and I actually don't have like any interest in what I'm genuinely watching. And I, as always, am not demanding you to do anything. This is not me telling you what to do or telling you that because you maybe spend a lot of time on the internet or social media that you are in any ways a bad person. That is nowhere near what I'm saying. I spend a lot of time on social media, and that does not make you a bad person. It's okay to want to connect with people and to, intake media and engage with it. But there is a fine line between engaging with and consuming, and I think we need to draw that line and kind of be aware what side we fall on. You can tell I'm very passionate about this topic and overconsumption in general. I am someone who has realized the ways that it has played an effect on my life, whether it be trying to buy useless products that I genuinely didn't end up using, to just as I've been saying, going through so much media a day that it feels like my head is about to explode. And when I spend less time on my phone and on the internet, I experience so much less brain fog. I don't know if this is just me, but when I am trying to do schoolwork, when I'm actually in school, I'm still on summer break somehow, I always struggle with trying to keep doing assignments if I keep taking breaks to scroll. When I just, put my phone aside and do it, my brain is a lot less overcrowded and I'm allowed to actually hear myself think which helps a lot when you're doing assignments. So with all the media that we are surrounded by, this is just a little gentle reminder to just be aware of what you're consuming or engaging with. And ultimately, what you engage and interact with is up to you. You do not have to watch something if you do not want to watch it. So you can change your mind about it anytime. And with that, thank you all so much for watching. I have recently gained a lot of subscribers. Maybe not a lot to some people, but it's a lot to me. And I'm genuinely so thankful. I just hit 1K while I'm filming today, which is really crazy. I did not expect this, and I'm just so thankful. So thank you guys once again for watching my videos, for commenting, for liking, for subscribing. If you haven't done those already, that would be amazing if you could. And I will see you guys in the next video. I am about to go back to college. I move into my living arrangements for college at the end of this week, actually. Crazy. So I probably will not be filming a ton, but this is going to be scheduled like a little after that time. So I'm trying to like schedule out content in advance. But just know that like I will be starting up college, which means I probably will not have as much free time as I do right now as being an unemployed college student in the summer. So expect just maybe it not to be as periodic, my postings. But I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.